Hello chaps, welcome to John Robson Guitar Tuition. I do hope you're well. Now today I have three, hopefully quite easy ways to enhance your blues phrasing when you're playing over a 12-bar blues, obviously. This isn't about using this scale or that scale or flattening or sharpening this note or that note. I've done other lessons about that and I'll probably do kind of more in the future. This is purely about where you place the phrases and what kind of phrases you play within the context of a 12-bar sequence. So I guess the first thing we'd better do is take a look at the chord sequence. Here it is. Okay then, here's the chord sequence we're going to be using for this demonstration. As you can see, it's a pretty standard 12-bar blues in the key of E, using the chords of E7, A7 and B7. You can also see that I've included the 1, 2, 3, 4 counting at the beginning of the sequence. And this leads us straight on to the first thing you can do to improve your blues phrasing. Don't begin your first phrase at the beginning of bar 1. Always start a little bit ahead of that, usually in the counting. Here's the difference it makes. First of all, you'll see me playing a phrase beginning on beat 1 of bar 1, and then you'll see exactly the same phrase beginning on the counting, and you'll hear that this does give a slightly more positive feel. It's as though the lead guitar is actually leading the music. Here are those examples then. Now admittedly that is quite a subtle difference, but the thing is, it's the cumulative effect of all of these little subtle changes that we make that add up to a big difference in the finished result. So what's the next thing we can do? Well, think of any blues song, perhaps Crossroads Blues, whether you're thinking of the Eric Clapton version or going all the way back to the original Robert Johnson version. What's the first line of that song? Went down to the crossroads, tried to flag a ride. And what's the second line of the song? I went down to the crossroads and tried to flag a ride. Let's think of another song. How about Muddy Waters, Got My Mojo Working? What's the first line? Well, it's I got my mojo working, but it won't work on you. And what's the second line of the song? I got my mojo working, but it just won't work on you. I think you can see a pattern here. So let's look at how we can make use of that repetition on the guitar. Okay, so when a blues singer sings the first line for a second time, that usually happens as the chord sequence is ascending to the 4 chord. In this case here, that would be at the end of the first line where we're going up from the E7 to the A7. So why not do that on the guitar? Play the first phrase, as we discussed earlier, beginning on the counting, and then play that phrase again as you go up into the A7 chord. Here's what that would sound like. And I hope you agree that that does give the solo some sort of sense of continuity. To my ears, it just makes things sound that little bit more, I don't know, joined up. Now, obviously, this does work, but you don't have to do it on every single cycle through the 12-bar blues. In fact, this next technique I'm going to show you uses a different method of moving from the 1 chord, which would be E7, up to the A7 4 chord. And what this involves is, dare I say it, a little bit of speed. Now, Don't worry if you don't have the sort of speed of someone like Joe Bonamassa or Walter Trout or something like that. This isn't really about speed in that sense. This is just about playing something that's a little bit busier. For reasons that I don't really want to go into here because it's a bit complicated and kind of beyond the scope of what I want to talk about at this stage. Whenever you have a chord sequence which is moving up by 5 frets, or a fourth as we would say in the jargon, whenever you have a chord which is moving up 5 frets to another chord, that is a good place to introduce some tension. Now in jazz circles, the way you would introduce that tension is by using some kind of exotic sounding scale like a diminished scale or super Locrian or something. But in a kind of blues and blues rock setting, it's often a place where you can add in a little bit of twiddly stuff. That's a technical term, twiddly bits, and that's what I'm going to be referring to these as rather than call them fast bits. What you do is you just play something a little bit busier sounding than what has preceded it at certain places, i.e. when the chords are moving up by 5 frets. So let's have a look at where you can do this within the 12 bar sequence. Right then, the chords in our 12 bar blues sequence that we're using are E7, A7 and B7. And you can see that when the E7 goes up to the A7 chord, that is a rise of 5 frets. Also, at the end of the 12 bar sequence where we're on a B7, the next chord that comes along is an E7, so that is going up 5 frets as well. So let's have a look at whereabouts in the chord sequence these 5 fret jumps are occurring. And you can see here that at the end of the first line, after 4 bars of E7, we go up 5 frets, and that takes us to A7. And also, as I mentioned earlier, at the end of the 12 bar sequence, you can see that that B7 takes us back to an E7, going up 5 frets, as we enter the next cycle of the 12 bar blues sequence. And these two places within the 12 bar blues are ideal points to add in a couple of little twiddly bits, basically things that sound a little bit busier than what's gone on before. And here I am doing exactly that. And there you have it, 3 little tips for enhancing the phrasing of your blues lead guitar playing. I do hope you found something useful here and maybe even a little bit inspiring, hopefully. If you're looking for some tailored one-to-one tuition, then get in touch with me. You'll find the details at the end of this video. I do Skype lessons wherever you are in the world, and if you live on Teesside in the northeast of England, then you can come along for some face-to-face lessons. Tailored one-to-one tuition, and your first lesson, by the way, is free, so you've got nothing to lose. While I'm here, I'll just take this opportunity to give a plug for my current album called The Whiskey Made Me Do It, which is available on iTunes, Amazon, all the usual places basically, and it's full of bluesy rock guitar playing. What's not to like? I'll put the link to the website where you can find all the purchase links in the description below this video. And we'll round things off now with a jam track. This is the 12 bar blues sequence that you've seen me and heard me jamming over in this lesson. Basically you'll see as the chord sequence motors along, each chord is kind of highlighted so you can see exactly where you are in the chord sequence at any given time, so you know where to add the twiddly bits, you know where to repeat the first line, etc, etc. Right folks, that's it for now. I do hope you've enjoyed this, and until next time, bye for now.